Hello everyone, my name is Louis Longchamps and I'm an assistant professor of digital agronomy at Cornell University. My presentation is about helping farmers experiment with biologicals by adding layers of data to their on-farm experimentation. A couple of years back, the price of nitrogen went up, and at the same time a new product came on the market that was offering to use microbes to fix nitrogen from the air. And the price was kind of good for farmers to adopt it, and a lot of farmers wanted to experiment with it. So what their experiment was looking like is that they would have their control, which would be the normal nitrogen rate that they use, and then there was the treatment was their rate minus 40 units, and then they would add the biological to that area of the field. The metric that they are looking at is the yield at the end of the season, and the interpretation is that if there is no yield difference between those two parts of the fields, this would mean that the pivot bio product worked for them. But meeting with farmers, I quickly realized that they were concerned about maybe their crop had enough nitrogen, and then they would not be able to detect if the product really does something in the field. So what we offered to do is to measure what the nitrogen status of the crop was, and the second thing is to look in the soil and try to detect the presence of the organisms in the corn roots. So we visited 20 sites here over 2022-2023 in about 15 farms. And we let the farmers experiment as they want, and then we just went and collected additional pieces of data from their farms. So the main piece of data that we have in hand today is looking at the nitrogen nutrition index. So how this works is that you have the concentration of nitrogen on the left, on the y-axis, and the biomass on the x-axis, and this creates a relationship like this. And if you are below the curve, this means that your plant needs more nitrogen. But if you are above, this means that your plant has sufficient nitrogen, and then even if you add 40 units more, it's not going to change anything. Or if you cut down by 40, it's not going to change anything. So what we wanted to know is where on that curve the crop was standing. So for each sample, we were able to put them on that relationship between yield potential and nitrogen nutrition index, and if it was in the response curve or in the luxury consumption part of the curve. So we observed, as you may expect, several different scenarios. Some of the farms came like very close to that inflection point, so this means that they were controlling or managing their nitrogen very tightly and very well. On other farms, we saw that really they were in the luxury consumption part of the curve. So here we would not expect to see any difference in nitrogen, really, in yield. However, other farms, they were really low in nitrogen. And on those farms, maybe the pivot bio, if you don't see any difference in yield, this would mean that the pivot bio really worked. So we are still crunching that data and looking into it to try to see the trends and the results. The data from this season are not harvested. The other piece of data that we are looking for is to detect if the organisms are present in the soil, and we will use qPCR to do this. The samples are currently being processed. After, with all the data in hand, we will meet with farmers to interpret the results and see if this can inform the next iteration of the experimentation. So we think that researchers can work with farmers to explore new solutions, and this can accelerate change. Thank you.